I'm sure a lot of learning happened the last two U.S. Opens, both of them being in the midst of the pandemic, especially the one 2 years coming up on 2 years ago, just over a year ago. And that was, perfect timing to be named the tournament director of the U.S. Open. Here you go, try and plan an event. Can you take us back to 2020 and trying to plan that event, which was not just the U.S. Open, but it was also hosting the Cincinnati tournament in New York before the eventual U.S. Open?
Yeah, look at it. We listened to the panel this morning. It's we have therapy still going on with everything, but you look back now, again, how did it all happen? The 2020 U.S. Open, to put in context, was the largest international event in the world to be staged since the global pandemic. And I didn't say tennis event, I said event in the world. And we were bringing in 2,500 international players and their support team members from 60 different countries. So if there was, for me, the fear of the unknown and hurricane force Category 5 winds against actually staging the 2020 U.S. Open, and personally just taking on a real emotional burden through it. Someone in our HR department said to me in about April, Stace, we're counting on you to have this U.S. Open.
Oh boy.
And we come back to who really Stacey Allaster is, how much I care about our people and our staff, and knowing we didn't have the Open, what it potentially was going to mean to people's lives and their careers and their families. So I played a game of whack-a-mole, and there was so many gremlins that were always popping up. You didn't know when and what was going to happen, and they started with internal. When I proposed that we would stage the Open without fans, it was, hell no way. That won't work. Let's just close the tent and call it a day. We had 8 different models, different times of the years. Maybe we should play in Puerto Rico or Guam, still part of the U.S. territories. Everything was on the table. I'll put it all on the table.
Yeah.
So we got through the internal, and we said, okay, well, we can do no fans. Then we had the federal government. You couldn't get into the United States. And so the USOPC paved the way for a proclamation so that athletes and sport could continue. Then we had New York State to deal with, and the athletes would not come if they had to quarantine. This was the first event. And look at everybody, quarantining. And the NBA was in the bubble. Our athletes, no, we're not quarantining for the 14 days. We had local city government, which is very complicated in New York City. We had, then you got sort of the domestic house in order with government affairs. Then the EU banned people coming from New York to go back to Europe. So again, the players didn't want to come. They just wanted the tour to start in Europe with Roland Garros in the fall. We're not coming, you can't get us back. We had to hire lawyers in England, in France, in Spain, and in France to advocate on our behalf with local government, and that we could prove that the athletes were going to be healthy as we returned them there. And then we had to convince the players. And literally up until a week before the Open, the guys were still pushing to not have this event happen. I can remember my boss, who was new, middle of July, said, Stace, we should write the press release that we're not going to do this. I'm just like, no, we're not giving up. We've come this far, we can do this.